Hey guys, welcome back. Just gonna work on my friend Marcy's 2007 Honda Fit. The Fit is here for a couple of things. If you heard the belt squealing when I pulled it in, I'm gonna check out that. I don't know what's going on there. And we're gonna give the headlights a quick polish, but most importantly, it needs new front struts. So the coil spring on the passenger side is broken, and when you're turning, it's grinding and binding and doing all kinds of gross stuff. So she bought some quick struts, completely assembled with new springs and top hats and the whole ball of wax, and some new sway bar links because those are attached to the strut. So we're gonna see if we can get those swapped out, get her belt tightened up, polish up her headlights, and have her ready for another summer of fun. So to get the tops, this is your nut. And in order to get that, it looks like we got to take the wiper arms off, take this cowl assembly out so we can get straight down on there with the impact gun and zip those off. So first I'm going to spray the threads down with a little something. And while we're taking that apart, we'll let that stuff soak in. We'll get that cowling and wiper arms off of there and get that taken care of first here. So to start, there's the black plastic cap that's on the wiper arm, which is rubber. You just grab a hold of that and you can pull it off real easy. And there's a 14mm nut under those. So you just break those loose and spin the nuts off. And then you can grab the wiper arms, pop those off. Pretty obvious, the passenger side one's super long. You're not gonna get them confused. It is important to make sure that you have them in their parked position or all the way down position. So when you do this, it's easy to get them lined back up. All right, once we get the wiper arms off, next up is getting the cowling off. So there's got this rubber hood seal that you're gonna pull off. Get that out of your way. Little cover here, it just pops out. That's actually so you can get to your brake fluid and stuff if you want. But next we got to get these loose. So we're going to bust out my trusty fork tool here, and it's got some of the pop clip type fasteners here, and let's see if we can get this thing wiggled loose. Okay, so it has these push pop fasteners on the back side of the trim that are going into those. So we just got in behind that and gently pried that up, popped them up. And then there's 3 fasteners, one in the middle and one over each strut tower that we're holding the plastic at the front side. Once you popped all that loose, you could roll these forward. You could take them all the way off if you wanted, I guess. The washer fluid hose is there. You could easily disconnect that, but it's out of the way enough for what I'm gonna do here doing the strut thing. So I'm just gonna get to my bolts, try to get them off, continue on my journey. All right, so in this case, 17mm nut was on top of the strut. So that was there, that was there. Put my impact gun on that, zipped it off. This comes off, the rest of it should drop out the bottom as we jack the car up. And then there should be a couple of bolts that hold the strut to the spindle. And then, yeah, the sway bar link. Just that easy, we hope. Okay, so got the sway bar link loose. So I got the nut off of that. Got the car up on jack stands, obviously got the wheel off, but got the sway bar link loose. Gonna pop that out of its place. And then these 2 big bolts are holding the strut to the spindle. We gotta get those off and make sure the spindle comes out, that you don't overstretch the anti-lock brake line or the brake hoses, all that kind of stuff. But we should be able to slide that out of there, do the old swapperoo, put her back together. We'll see how this goes. In the meantime, best daughter ever just brought me out an oatmeal raisin cookie and a Mountain Dew. I think she's buttering me up for something, but I don't know what yet. Okay, and just like that, 2 19mm bolts there, and just put a screwdriver behind this bracket and was able to pry it out of the strut, and did have to get a flat screwdriver in there and push it on this tab and pull the anti-lock brake line out of the tab mount that's on the strut itself. And once I got that out, that's the top hat that was attached. And you can see that spring that had broken. So part of the spring there, where it broke, and then the other part of the spring is still wadded up in here. But yeah, that was her problem. Let's get the new one and put her back together. All right, so here's your new strut assembly. The little tab for the anti-lock brake wire is there. The mounting bracket for the sway bar link is there. Comes with the new Strut top bearing and plate nut. So pop this off, pop this off. We'll set those up top, push this into place, and start putting things back together. So you can see kind of going back together, our 2 bolts, snapped our anti-lock brake wire back into place. We'll tighten them bolts up. This particular car did not have like any eccentric style bolts there, which some of them do to measure with the alignment. So I've said it before, and it was a hardcore reminder for myself today because I didn't do it. But when unhooking your strut from your spindle, it's very important not to pull the spindle out too far, or you'll pull the axle apart inside. And unfortunately, that is exactly what I've done today. So the axle shaft has pulled out of the cup that snaps into the transmission end. So I've just had to undo this boot, which has a clamp, which I used my channel locks there to squeeze it, which then unlocks the clamp. Pop the clamp off, and now we're going to pull the boot back and see if we can get the bearings lined back up and in their corresponding places here. All right, so pop the band off, pull the boot down. Got to realign the 3 ball bearings into their slots in the cup, and then clean the grease up, slide the boot back on, slide the band back on, and get it clamped back into place. So you just squeeze here with the channel locks, and then get your snap pieces lined back up so they're all locked in. The band's nice and tight. Now we can put the axle back in. Now, we got to make sure that we torque the outer axle nut when we put this back together, because this is what puts the preload tension on the wheel bearing. So if you do get to this point, make sure that you torque that to the proper spec. All right, so we've retorqued our axle nut to 134 foot-pounds, which is the specification for that. We've got the sway bar link put back on. Everything under here is tightened back up. Make sure to stake the axle nut into the groove there so that it can't work its way loose. So we're going to do that, get the tire back on. We'll set the car down on the ground, get it on its weight, and then we can tighten the upper strut bolt. Okay, so we got the car back on its wheels. We've tightened the upper strut nuts, and now we can put this back together. However, this particular car had some critters trying to nesting up in here, and this is the area in which your heater draws its air for the heating system. So we're going to clean that area out in this car and try and get the aroma going for them. All right, so now working on tightening the belt up. So of course it's not going to focus on the right thing, but down there you can see there's a bolt on the top of the alternator, and then there is a long threaded bolt that comes all the way to the front of the alternator. I've got my ratcheting wrench on it. So we loosen the bolt that's on the top that goes in to the alternator, that one there. So we loosen that one up, and then we tighten this one. That brings the alternator closer, which puts more tension on the belt. So we'll tighten that belt up, and then re-tighten the alternator bolt itself, and hopefully we can get rid of the belt squeal, and then we'll move on to maybe doing something to polish up these headlights. And then there was magic. So we used a little bit of the Meguiar's heavy cut cleaner on a cotton pad on my buffer, and just a few seconds at 1200 RPM, and you can see again. Now we'll do the other side. All right, so unfortunately, we were not able to get the tension bolt to move like it's supposed to. So what I ended up doing was put my pry bar in here and just prying the alternator out. So you can now see there's a little gap between our tension bolt and bracket. That's the way they were for the first 80 years cars were made, until Honda came out with this fancy design. So anyway, got it tightened up. Marcy's gonna go ahead and hit the key. Marcy. Hey, no more squealing. Far out. We win again. All right, just like that, got it put together. and took her for a rip, and all is well. So we dropped it off at Marcy's house. She gave me a ride back home, back to an empty garage. What should I do now?